Good morning and welcome to this WIOA Wednesday webinar. My name is Jennifer Phillips with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University. I will be the co-moderator for today's webinar, and I'm joined by my colleague Kirsten Baer from ICSPS, and also a special guest co-moderator, Lisa Manalisi from Richland Community College. So today's topic is innovations to boost digital skills and access and acquisition in Illinois. Just as a reminder, all participants on the call are in listen-only mode. If you have questions as the webinar proceeds, please post your question in the chat box and we will address them at the end of the webinar. This webinar will be recorded. The presentation, the recording, and any materials presented today will be available on the ICSPS illinoisstate.edu website probably within the next 48 hours. And my colleague Kirsten put the slides from today, the link for today's slides, in the chat box already. Tomorrow, each attendee will receive a follow-up email which will include a survey asking you about today's webinar. Please provide feedback and any suggestions you have to help us improve upcoming webinars. And just as a reminder, if you have an unstable internet connection, or you can always call in with the number that was provided in your registration. And with that, I'm going to get started. Kirsten, if you want to move us to the next slide. We're going to start by just asking the audience a couple poll questions about where you are from and what type of organization you work for. This is a way to give the audience and the panelists a sense of where people are from.
We'll give everyone about 30 seconds to answer this poll. The first question is, where is your local area today? Where are you joining us from? Pretty broad, but we'd just like to know if you're joining us from Chicago, Northern Illinois, Central Illinois, Southern Illinois, or if you are joining us from statewide, out of state. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and share the results. So it looks like a wide variety of us are joining us from up north this morning, which is great. Welcome to everyone across the board and across the state. We're very excited to share this content with you. And then one more poll: which partner do you best represent? And we'll give everyone about 30 seconds to answer this poll as well, and then I'll share the results. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Most of us are joining it today from Title I, and the rest from across the board. So we welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Kirsten. If you could move us to slide 4, please. We wanted to start the webinar just with a quick reminder that this is the second part of a 2-part webinar series on the digital divide. The first webinar was about digital infrastructure access and skills and analysis of the digital divide inequities in Illinois. The website is listed here if anyone wanted to, if you missed that webinar, if you wanted to watch it or look at the slides, that's up on your screen. And we thought we'd start with just a few poll questions from some of the data that was presented during that webinar. Kirsten, if you could go to the first poll question.
Which one were you wanting, Jen?
Sorry, the first poll question on the workers lacking digital skills.
Okay, thank you.
So how many US workers lack digital skills? Give people a minute to put in their answers. Kirsten, can we show the results for that? Right, so if, Kirsten, can you close the poll? 31% is the correct answer. And if you could go forward, Kirsten, to the next slide. So nearly a third of America's workers lack digital skills, with 13% having really no digital skills and about 18% having limited digital skills. Kirsten, if we could go to the next poll question. So how many workers have limited, how many workers have limited or no digital skills have lower earnings? Sorry, do workers with limited or no digital skills have lower earnings? Pardon me. I'll give you a minute to answer that one. Kirsten, if you can put up the results. Yes, overwhelming audience participation here with 92%. And as you can see on this next slide, that is correct, that people that don't have strong digital skills typically have lower earnings. And then we have one more poll question with some data that was shared in the first webinar. Are jobs requiring more digital skills for workers? Sorry, are jobs requiring more digital skills even for workers who have low digital literacy? I'll give you a minute to answer that one. Kirsten, why don't we put up the response? My guess is everyone's going to say yes, yes, overwhelming yes. And if we close that poll and go to the next slide, you can see that many workers who lack digital literacy do have jobs that require substantial computer skills. All right, I'm going to keep going. Kirsten, can you take us to the next slide? So just wanted to share two other pieces of information that came from that first webinar. Matt Schmidt from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities Office of Broadband was one of our presenters. He presented on some of the grant making opportunities that have happened, especially since COVID with the Illinois Connected grant making. So just wanted to point out that this information was part of the first webinar. The slides and resources were shared back in September if anybody wants to take a look, and I believe that they're getting ready to do another round of grant making. And then finally, just wanted to show, if we go to the next slide, show some of the digital divide recommendations that came out of the first call that really talked about trying to figure out how to have an Illinois definition for occupational digital literacy, thinking about how to increase the number of digital literacy upskilling grants in Illinois, thinking about how to engage businesses themselves, especially because of the need to have workers that have a foundation for digital skills. Just wanted to share a few of the recommendations that came out of that webinar. So I am going to turn the baton over to Lisa, who's going to introduce our panelists for today. Thanks, Lisa.
Good morning. So with us this morning, we have Kimberly Hunt from the Waukegan Public Library. She is the Digital Literacy Coordinator. We have with us Robert Edwards from the Decatur Public Library, Matt Weiss from National Able Network, the Chief Program Officer at National Able Network, Richard Bush, Dean of Blackhawk Community College, Edwin Braun from New Braunfels Independent School District, Seth Brosio, Richland Community College, Program Coordinator for the Highway Construction and Career Training Program. And last we have with us Nick Gorens, also from Richland Community College in the Workforce Development, and he is the Program Coordinator for CDL. And last, Moises Bernal Puente from Central States SER and the Illinois Digital Learning Lab. Welcome to all of our panelists. Okay, and starting off, we have with us Kimberly. And Kimberly, would you like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and what is happening at Waukegan Public Library?
Yes, thank you so much. So my name is Kim Lunt, and I work at the Waukegan Public Library. I am the digital literacy coordinator there. I coordinate classes and programs for adult learners who need digital literacy skills, job readiness, and financial literacy. The pandemic obviously has pushed people to be seeking out digital skills learning opportunities more so than ever, and they are coming for help with life and work issues that all require digital skills. We at the Waukegan Public Library are outcomes based and really work towards skills being able to be applied to our learners' lives. Next slide. I just wanted to point out that we work through Zoom with our students in whatever capacity, learning capacity that we are in, and we strive to work with them to feel comfortable in Zoom prior to getting to the real learning, the real digital learning that's going on. So getting them into Zoom ahead of time eliminates some of that stress that adult learners may have. Next slide. So I wanted to talk first about Northstar Digital Literacy. They are a nationally recognized organization that we are a certified site of in Lake County. In fact, we're the only one in Lake County. And Northstar has about 12 topics that people can prepare for and take assessments. They have online learning accounts, and those are set up after somebody is interested through the Waukegan Public Library. After somebody takes a test, they can earn a badge, or if they take the test in a proctored way, they would earn a certificate. Proctoring is going on throughout this pandemic, and we do it all through Zoom. So certificates are ultimately recognized by employers, and Northstar actually says that certificates provide an important credential for employment, as even entry-level jobs increasingly require basic computer skills. Certificates also certify end-user ability to complete computer skills needed in higher education and demonstrate their ability to use social media and online information thoughtfully. So we are part of this, and I just wanted to point out that, you know, I've had conversations with other adult digital literacy educators who have said that it is very difficult to know what basic digital literacy is, as most of us working in it have learned along the way or acquired skills without formal education. So where does digital literacy start, or what is basic digital literacy and how is it defined? I believe that Northstar has gotten it right. They start off with basic computer skills and don't assume that learners truly know what the difference between log on, log off, turn on, and shut down mean. Things that we might take for granted. So Northstar does this with each topic that they cover and assess. We're very happy to be a part of the Northstar community. Next slide. So here are the Northstar topics, and basically they're in 3 categories. The essential computer skills are best for learners who identify as low skill or are most comfortable starting at the beginning. The middle category there, the essential software skills, are good for people who are looking to improve their job situation and are maybe looking to move on to an advanced training program like a Microsoft certification program. And then the category over on the right, using technology in daily life, these are 4 topics that ultimately just make a learner feel more competent and comfortable in daily digital life. Next slide. Here are some recent successful certificate earners. It really is thrilling when a learner passes, so I try to make sure that we get photographs. Who are we working with? Ultimately, adult learners who are unemployed, looking to change their career, working on getting a promotion, and college students who, you know, they say they have phone literacy, but really not necessarily true digital literacy. And I also work with teachers in adult ed at the College of Lake County, Albany Community Center, Harper College, and Truman College. Next slide. We have classes that line up specifically with Northstar and different learning opportunities. So firstly, we have 5 to 6 week classes on each Northstar topic. And after they complete, they should be able to pass the assessment. You can see all of the opportunities that we provide learners to make it fit into their lives. So all of this that's listed here are things that we're doing at the library. Next slide. While all of our programs lead towards Northstar, not all of our learners want or need a certificate. They may just need to learn one particular thing that's going to help improve their lives. So we offer internet classes in English and Spanish, and we have recently, excuse me, partnered with our school district to help parents with internet skills, specifically about their children's Google Classroom, Google Meet, and then Infinite Campus, which is the school district's learning management system. Next slide. Here's a picture from this past Saturday's parent internet class. It was very nice because when I asked them if we could take a photo, they asked for a 5-minute break to go, you know, make themselves look nice for the photograph. So that was cute. Next slide. So we also are finding more and more that learners are interested in Microsoft Office for their own personal and business needs. You can see some of the topics that we cover in our classes are listed here. And there's a photograph there that is obviously pre-pandemic of a group of students with their certificates. And when I say certificates, I don't mean Northstar at this point. We give out Waukegan Public Library digital literacy certificates for people who have participated and completed our programs. Next slide. We have drop-in labs through Zoom as well as individual appointments and one-on-one that we do with people as they come in and ask for specific help with computers. And we also do this for job readiness topics. So it's nice because we help people with their resumes and job search and other job topics. Next slide. Here is a picture of a pre-pandemic of our drop-in lab for computer skills. Next slide. I also wanted to let you know that we have licenses for people to do Typing Club. Typingclub.com is a free resource online that anyone can sign up for, but oftentimes it is filled with ads and distractions. So we offer it to people who are interested in improving their typing skills without the ads. And there are 685 lessons. And the wonderful thing is that there are many accessibility options. So people that have vision or hearing or even left or right hand mobility issues, we can set up typing plans that are going to work for them. Next slide. And lastly here, I wanted to just talk to you about the fact that we receive donations of laptops from organizations, and then we have volunteers who refurbish them, and we raffle those laptops off to our learners. Over the last 5 years, I've given out over 120 laptops and computers to our successful learners. And I just completed my first raffle during the pandemic. And I did it for learners who were involved in our programs during the month of October. I'm going to continue doing it this way as we move forward in the pandemic. Our goal is to ultimately give one to every dedicated learner. And next slide. And then I just wanted to say, I am a part of a department called the Adult Education and Literacy Department at the Waukegan Public Library. So I'm just one piece. We also have coordinators who do tutoring, Spanish GED, health literacy, ESL, and many other learning topics. All our learners enter through our intake person, who is listed here, Jennifer. And if you have any questions about anything that I've talked about, I would be happy to discuss with you offline. Thanks so much for this opportunity to present.
Thank you, Kim. Next, we have Robert Edwards from the Decatur Public Library. And Robert, as well, would you please introduce yourself and tell us about what you do at the Decatur Public Library?
Good morning. I'm Robert Edwards. I'm the Assistant Director here at the Decatur Public Library, also the Circulation Manager. And I do grant writing, and also I work with the digital groups here at the library. So that's sort of what I do. My background actually began with the computers as far as Cisco and networking and programming. And so what happened was I started working at the library, and there turned out to be a need for those things in the library. So I didn't go to the computer field way in a sense. I didn't go and just go out into computers and programming. I found out, that, hey, the library is actually a pretty cool place to work. Must be, I've been here over 20 years now. So what we do at the library here, we actually, at the Decatur Public Library, we've actually had some strategic planning over the years that have sort of helped us to focus where we want to, have our resources. And we realize that we cannot, meet every need in the community. And so we've put a great effort out there to find partners that we could work with. And one of the partners that we work with is Workforce Investment with Lisa and her group from Richland Community College. The other partner that we work with is Project Read, and they focus on adult literacy. So the library, what the library does, we actually have decided, we can provide the space and we can provide some of the resources to work with these groups, because they specialize in literacy, they specialize in education, and we can't, we just don't have the money to, to hire people to do what they do so well already. So providing the space, of course, has become quite an issue now with the pandemic, but with Workforce having their own space and Project Read having their own space, they worked out ways that they can still have classes and they can still bring people in. We, during our strategic planning, we had a lot of conference little groups. We had some surveys, and we found out that the community, first of all, they like coming to the library. We have a lot of people that really love the library, but they also said there are some things that they would like to see. And this has been a few years ago, we had these surveys. One of the things that they mentioned that they would like to see is more downloadable materials, more online catalog, a greater presence on our website for things that people can access when the library is not open. So we've started to working in that direction. And the other thing that people, they let us know that they want classes, they want the digital classes. So here at the library, we actually tried to, before the pandemic, of course, we tried to have classes at least 2 to 3 times a week, every week. And we sort of, I noticed that Kim was talking about some of the Microsoft classes. We have the Microsoft classes. We have some of the programming. Every once in a while we have programming classes. We have been in contact with some of the businessmen or businesswomen around the city, and sometimes they'll give us suggestions for classes. And people who are just basically looking for a job, they'll call and say, hey, when are you guys gonna offer that? So we take suggestions. We have our regular standard classes like Microsoft classes, but we also listen to the community, and when they have the questionnaires, or they'll leave messages and say, you know, are you going to offer this? You're going to offer Adobe class, you know, are you going to offer, you know, you have Excel, but are you going to talk about pivot tables? When are you going to do that? So we tried to tailor our classes, you know, sort of what the community needs are. From time to time, what we can't do, we can't give a full curriculum, you know, and we can't give a full 8 weeks of classes or 6 weeks of classes like the college does, but we can give some instruction. And we have the Gale, you know, we're looking at the Northstar, but we do have Gale classes, and we have some software that allows them to work through it at their own pace, and basically they will be able to get a certificate at the end, and they also will be able to, you know, contact us if they need any help with their classes. So a lot of our digital resources, the hardware, we basically buy that from grants. Of course, the library's per capita grant. The state has the, you know, the LSTA grants. We're very grateful for this state of Illinois, who really supports libraries, and we are glad that they, you know, they've had the money there for libraries. And one of the things that, you know, we've taken advantage of, besides the per capita grant, we've taken advantage of the Project Next Generation grant, which that actually gives us some funds so we can buy equipment and we can help with that digital divide. And we've also had some grants that we've sought out from the community that have helped us to get Wi-Fi hotspots. Right now we're offering, in addition to the Wi-Fi hotspots, we're working on trying to find a way to do the laptop loans. There's a vendor out there that offers, they have a machine that they can set into your library, and you can actually loan out laptops. The Wi-Fi hotspots, they go pretty quick, but we have also a governor a vendor that actually helps us get those at a really good price. We offer proctor services there at the library in addition to the classes. So we basically try to be, you know, what the community needs. And we also have the adult programming, the TED Talks and things like that. And we have, lately, of course, everything's been on Zoom. But Lisa had asked me, you know, just to share some of the things that the library does, and this is what the Decatur Public Library does. I've talked to several librarians and libraries, and I think a lot of libraries are sort of leaning in this direction. You know, we're kind of doing things similar. We're working with the homeless, trying to make sure that, you know, some of the people who can't afford the cards, you know, find a way to get them access back to the library so they can get the free digital resources. And that may include doing like we've done here at the Decatur Public Library. We've eliminated the fines. So that helps a lot, you know, when there are people who couldn't have access, but now they can because of the fines. And there are people who we actually just have the digital cards so they can just take advantage of the digital resources. So we think all of these things that we do help to get people to a better place and to help them to achieve some of the goals that they want to achieve toward maybe getting a better job, bettering themselves, or just in some cases entertainment. And just sometime like with the Project Next Generation grants, we think, you know, introducing them to new technology. So we have like the 3D printers, and we have the virtual reality, and all of that's for, you know, loan. And one of the things that helps us too is mentors. So part of the Project Next Generation grant helps us to get mentors to come in so we don't have library staff having to come, you know, step away from what they're doing and trying to fill that void, that gap too. So the mentors help tremendously. And as I say, partnerships with like the Girls and Boys Club, the different other groups, that helps a lot for us to get those resources out to the people, because that really is the big challenge, I think, for libraries, is letting people know that we have so much to offer, but, you know, we just have to let them know that we have it here at the library. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. And I think Jennifer mentioned this earlier, but questions you could put into the chat, and we will have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. Next up, we have Matt Weiss, and forgive me if I did not pronounce your name correctly.
You got it right.
Okay, thank you. Chief Program Officer from the National ABLE Network. And
Thank you
Matt,
so much.
Mhm.
If you want to go to the first slide here, I'll kick it off. This is really, I'm going to give a couple examples here about really what we've done to address the digital divide from a programming perspective. But I wanted to give folks on the webinar a little bit of background, both about the agency itself, as well as the programs that we've adapted really to serve the population and make sure that they have access to training to really help address the digital divide. So a little bit about National ABLE Network. We're a little over 40 years old. We are a not-for-profit entity based in Chicago, but we do serve most states throughout the Midwest region and one on the East Coast. We serve quite a few people per year, as you can see, around about 75,000 access some type of service and get employment assistance through one of our many programs. We're funded through a variety of means. We have some national grants. I think notably, and for this audience, we oversee American Job Centers, both in LWIA 7, the Pilsen area, and in Chicago Heights. If you want to go to the next slide. So you can see here just some of the profile of our overall programming that we serve. The things that we're going to particularly focus on here are really going to be our vocational training program, which was developed a few years ago called IT Career Lab, as well as what we've done to tackle some of the digital divide concerns that we've been seeing for many years now with our senior population. We are a senior community service employment program grantee, and that is across many states. We do serve quite a few seniors every year, and obviously that's a population who needs a lot of assistance in this area, and so we've got some pretty unique programming that I'll talk about in a moment. If you could go to the next slide. So some of the things that we did as an agency was we obviously transitioned to virtual services really across the board in the March-April timeframe, and I think this was commonplace through many workforce development providers at the time. We couldn't be open. There was a state lockdown, and other states followed suit, and so we ended up transitioning to virtual services, and this presented, I think, a unique challenge both for staff as well as our participants, in that it really amplified people's ability to access assistance because of this digital divide that we're here to talk about today. This is just some of the things that we've done to really adapt our service delivery across that time. But as we started to deliver services virtually to participants and help them with their job search and talk about even the prospect of employment in a down economy, the digital divide and digital literacy specifically started to come up as a recurring theme. And it's something that we really wanted to get hands-on with and address because it impacts so many people. I'm going to go through, again, a couple examples, and we're going to talk through what we did. If you could go to the next slide. So I talked about IT Career Lab and our Senior Community Service Program as the two examples here. I'll back up a minute. When I talk about seniors, the senior population, who I'm referring to is individuals who are really over the age of 55 and are participating in our Senior Community Service Employment Program. And essentially, those individuals have to meet income requirements where they have to fall below the federal poverty line. So they really don't have a lot of financial means. Some of them, this is really their first time being able to work. The program does provide them with subsidized employment for a time period. It's up to 4 years for the legislation. And so we're able to put people in paid work experience for that amount of time with employers or with community-based providers to get them experience. However, one of the chief things that we found with our employer base too is that they need people who have some type of digital skills. And so long story short, COVID amplified this. We had to address it. If you want to move to the next slide, we'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes here. So IT Career Lab is our vocational training program. This program is unique in that it runs 16 weeks, and it was done. One of the keynotes of this program, and the thing that we always talked about, what made it so beneficial to folks, is we would have in-person training and it would be hands-on. Obviously, we can't do that anymore. But I also think that one of the things that we put into practice early with this program, which was we wanted to ensure that people had good computers to work from and study from. So we would issue them a laptop. That was a thing that ended up working in our favor as we had to do this virtual services transition. So we had a lot of the building blocks in place to make sure that folks had access to a computer in order to consume the curriculum and participate in training up front. If you want to go to the next slide. You can see here kind of the scope of what we were dealing with here. We had multiple states that this program works with. And there are certifications that are bundled into this track of classes, into the 16 weeks. So it's nice because individuals can see quick wins throughout that 16-week period. There was challenges because the certification entities, these are third-party vendors who issue certifications. And so we had to adapt to number one, the certification providers weren't really issuing certifications because no one was allowed to take them. They had to be proctored in person. That finally changed in June, but we had to really adapt things and in a way help participants to bridge the gap between when they were, able to take an in-person certification that got canceled, and now what does it look like virtually? If you want to move to the next slide. You can see here who we serve. It's primarily people of color in most of our IT Career Lab classes. And this demographic slide is a little skewed in favor of males versus female breakdown. Because this is the IT industry, we're actually well ahead of the curve with that. I will say our CSEP demographics look drastically different. When it comes to male-female breakdown. However, breakdown by race is much the same, but you can get an idea of who we're serving here within our vocational training program. We'll go next slide. So you can see here, and I did mention this earlier, where we've got, hands-on training, everyone's really happy, things are going well, and then, pre-COVID. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see what it looks like post-COVID. And it's just empty classrooms. Computers just sitting there, sad. I will say we're very quick to adapt, and we saw some interesting trends when we did transition to virtual training, in that individual attendance was up for the first few months. Then I think what happened was school started for many people, and they had to juggle life. And so we started to see a little more significant drop off of our student population. It's still pretty good as far as outcomes. Normally our program has around a 93% completion rates in the 90s. It went down to about 80 some percentile. Our employment rate also went down pretty significantly because of just access to jobs and frankly people being nervous about the prospect of employment with COVID. Want to go next slide? So as you can see here, we transitioned to online. And the way that we were able to do this was we baked that cost of the laptops, and we've been doing this again since the start of the program. We baked that cost into the overall program tuition. Most of our students receive some type of subsidy to pay for training, whether it's through the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. It could be individuals who qualify for food stamps. We have a grant to serve them with food stamps. 99.9% of individuals who go into our program do not have to pay out of pocket. They get it covered through some type of government means. The challenge here was, again, internet access for individuals. And so we did end up providing hotspots as needed. Internet connectivity continues to be a challenge just across the board. However, we at least had the mechanism baked into the program where we were able to purchase laptops. So we knew that the hardware they had was okay. It's just getting them online that was the challenge. We did have a couple of fixes for that though. Next slide. With our senior population though, and this was a different initiative, IT Career Lab, the whole goal of the program is IT certifications. And so we're dealing with and assess individuals to have a certain bar for entry where they had to have some type of basic computer knowledge in order to participate. Not great, but they had to be able to know how to turn on the computer and such. With our senior population, we were literally starting from ground zero. And you can see some of the challenges here that we've identified with the senior population. You know, there was obviously limited access, I think, across the board to technology. We deal with a lot of rural areas, specifically Southern Illinois, other states that are very rural, Nebraska and rural Iowa. There were obviously physical challenges to getting internet access. And then obviously just, I think, general ambivalence around just what is the internet? How do I use it? What can it be used for? There was a lot of rumors, I think, floating around too amongst this population around just what, you know, is something gonna go wrong? What if something does go wrong? And so we wanted to make sure that how we addressed this and tackled this was really hitting at all those key points. But from the entire time, focusing through a lens of workforce development and making sure that folks had an avenue to get back to work. Next slide. So what we did here was we piloted an online digital training for seniors. And what we decided to do early on was to hire college students, and we felt as though this would be good for everybody. It would address a generational gap. College students obviously are pretty familiar with technology. They grew up in a time of technology. So you'd have this kind of multi-generational interaction. The college students obviously needed work. Many of them were doing schooling from home, so this worked out in their favor too. The program ended up being about 30 hours of train the trainer, so our trainers worked with the college students to get them up to speed, and we did schedule around their online classes. Obviously our seniors, you know, they're in this program, so we were able to kind of play with the times a little bit and make sure that everyone was available to take the training. The most important piece here was that we ended up being able to procure internet-connected laptops and mail them to the participants. And so this is a really critical thing because, you know, they don't have to have a broadband connection. They don't have to have a DSL connection in their home. They open the laptop and now it's connected to the internet. And so that was a really critical part, having that infrastructure in place. And frankly, being able through a grant to purchase these laptops was really important. Otherwise, this program wouldn't have worked. Next slide, please. Total, we developed a program and are currently in the throes of training. And the training is 80 hours of live instruction. You can see some of the topics that we focus on with the seniors. And it really addresses a lot of the topics that I talked about before, you know, some of the things that they had thought or frankly didn't know about the internet through this lens of employment. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing, there's always an employment focus because at the end of the day, that's the goal. We want to make sure that we're preparing people for the world of work, but also training them just on general skills that they need to function in this new online world that they now have access to, that they frankly just didn't have before. The biggest thing here is one of the largest topics that I frankly didn't really know too much about, but after we had discussed it, it made a lot more sense, was telehealth. Obviously, we're in the days of COVID, and you know, folks are really not looking forward to going to the doctor's office. Some have put off critical doctor visits. This is something that we wanted to make sure folks understood and were able to connect to their telehealth provider. And so we did prioritize this throughout the training as well. Next slide, please. You know, one of the, and I'm, I went through these awfully fast. If you do have questions, I'm going to post my contact information here at the end. I will say that, you know, the reason that these two programs were able to adapt so quickly and well to serve the population, address the digital divide, and frankly, just adapt to the new reality of COVID and remote learning is that we had flexible grants and had already, in some instances, baked in the cost of hardware to payments. And that's a really, really critical function that we're now seeing a lot of funders just turned down. We've, you know, in recent weeks, we've been denied laptop purchases for participants for a variety of reasons. I think there's just some misnomers about what individuals will do with the machine once they get it. I think there's some regulations on the government end of things and some bureaucracy that ties the hands of some funders. But I think it's critical that we advocate for change in this area. Internet access and having any type of infrastructure or technology to access the internet is such a critical thing for job seekers, for anybody. And we see that with our senior population. So making sure that funding is flexible enough to support these types of initiatives is very important. The other piece is subsidized employment, and making sure that organizations are, really looking at what types of workforce programming they're using to help people address this. Staff training is a big one. We've invested a ton of time into training our staff to ensure that they're able to walk participants through a lot of these topics and address the digital divide with them. I mean, we've made investments, frankly, as an organization across the board too. Next slide. So here's my contact information. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you have about these programs. There's obviously a lot more to it. We're limited on time, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
And thank you, Matt. This is Jennifer. I'm just going to jump in really quick. Just two very quick questions that we won't save for the chat. One is just quickly, can you let the audience know how you were able to send laptops that were already internet enabled? Maybe that's something that you, if it's a long answer, you could put through the chat or just quickly. And then the second is for CSEP, could you just define the age range?
Yeah, age range for CSEP is 55 up. So we can serve anyone who's a senior that meets income guidelines 55 plus. For the laptops, we worked with our IT department. We have a really good relationship with Dell because of the number of purchases that we make per year. We were able to partner with them and Verizon Wireless. They make a laptop that connects to cell phone service essentially. So you literally just open the laptop up and it's got a Verizon wireless connection there. There's no need. It can connect to a hotspot if you have Wi-Fi. However, it runs on a cell phone signal and it's a flat fee that we pay per month to support those that we were able to bake into the grant. And we just mailed those out to the individuals.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, Matt, thank you very much. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, next on our panelists, we have Richard Bush, Dean of Blackhawk Community College. And I believe, Richard, you're gonna introduce yourself and then tell us about immersive learning, correct?
Yes, thank you. If you'll advance the slide for me. One more, yes. My name is Richard Bush. I am the Dean for Career Programs at Blackhawk College in the Moline Quad Cities area. I've been with Blackhawk College now just a smidge over a year, so I'm still fairly green and have that new Dean smell about me like a new car. So what we're doing is we're working on a grant right now, and hopefully we'll hear something here shortly, but as part of this presentation, what we knew about students going in prior to the shift that COVID forced upon us were some interesting things that had a spotlight shined upon them after COVID caused the big shift. One of those is how students struggle in complex and gatekeeper courses and how those struggling students had to often repeat those important courses, especially for those limited enrollment programs. As an example, I put anatomy and physiology as a gatekeeper course for a lot of our nursing students and a lot of our LPN students. And quite often our students were forced to retake those courses because they had difficulty understanding and appreciating the complex nature of anatomy and physiology because they couldn't connect with it. Still, another area is that we needed, for some of our students, especially in the welding, CNC, and manufacturing areas, opportunities for them to build their skills and muscle memory in those areas that they needed to create proficiency and competency at a better level than they had before. Still further, we had many others that lacked the preparation for study or the focus for study. They lacked the ability to study in an enhanced learning environment where we have these more and more of these technologies being introduced in the classroom, the leveraging learning management systems, as well as other technologies to help them acquire the knowledge, to appreciate what they're learning, and to hone their skills. Many of our students lacked access to home computers or laptops of their own. They also lacked the ability to connect with the internet to be successful. So they lacked a lot of the infrastructure and resources necessary for that kind of access. Also, many of them needed that connection with instructors and the content in a different way, or in a more traditional way is a more accurate way of putting it, because a lot of our students used coming to campus as a way to get away from the other obligations in their lives, their families, their children, allowing them to come to school and spend all of their time and focus on the topic that they're putting together and what they're working on. By moving us to a purely online environment and that COVID shift that we all experienced, they lost that connection, and that was a major, major deficit for some of our students. Next slide, please. So what we're working on, our initiative, is to transform, and we've selected manufacturing and healthcare, to incorporate immersive learning technologies as a means of connecting students with complex topics so that they can, in the end, not only acquire the knowledge of that particular complex topic or hone their skills through repetitive skills development, but also to increase their retention of this knowledge. There's a great deal of research pointing to the fact that many of these students today will not only intellectually connect with the topic through lecture and lab experiences, they not only will build skills and hone their skills further in those lab experiences, but they will now connect emotionally to the topics at hand through augmented and virtual reality in an immersive learning environment. So for us to get there, and we hope to hear about the award of this grant in the next few weeks, but more importantly, whether we hear about that or not, we are going to begin implementing many of these strategies that you see in front of you as a way of improving student learning outcomes across both manufacturing and healthcare, and then later across the entire portfolio. So from an immersive learning standpoint, we're going to leverage AR and VR technologies across all of the portfolio to help students understand the complexity of a topic intellectually, but emotionally connect with it and build upon that emotional connection. We are connecting with our area employers to create work-based learning opportunities that will increase the students seeing themselves working in those fields, and more importantly, give them the experience and confidence to continue to work in those fields. We're going to be, and we are presently working on the design and implementation of accelerated learning pathways that allow students to come in and go out of the program and have entry-level and progressively greater job opportunities as a result. Finding ways for us to not only build this from a credit standpoint, but from a non-credit with transitions to the credit side of the house as well. We realize that many of these students who lack the technological background, who lack access, who lack the technical literacy, we're going to need to provide them with additional support services that allow our students to intentionally see themselves through not only this educational paradigm, but how it might impact their future careers. And we're going to do that through improved or enhanced tutoring and invasive advising, as well as career services and virtual career fairs that will help them understand the importance of technology and work today. And lastly, as part of this piece, we're looking at linkages across the career pathways to encompass the bridge programs, career and technical programs, and work-based learning in a comprehensive, complementary pathway for students to learn and acquire the skills that they need to be successful when they go out into the field. Our goal, as I like to phrase it, is not to help our students find a job, but to find that career, that passion, that profession. Jobs are a dime a dozen. There's a very little passion or excitement in it. But a career, which might be the same work as that job, has connected with that student on an emotional, intellectual level that allows them to get up every day, excited about what they're going to do, and apply the technology and the knowledge that they've learned as a result of this immersive learning environment. Next slide, please. So what this does for us, and this is where my biggest focus is through immersive learning, is it allows the student to experience the subject, not just learn about it, not read about it, not go to the lab, but experience it through immersion and interaction with that topic. The biggest and best example is a colleague of mine at another institution who implemented it for their anatomy and physiology for nursing students, where they are able to interact with the various systems of the human body. That interaction allowed many of their students to pass the modules and to pass the requirements for anatomy and physiology because they better understood the inner workings of the human body, the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, in a way that they couldn't grasp simply by reading the material. It allowed them to master it by repeating it over and over again, often being able to take that lab with them home, in some cases, and learning it at a time when it is best for them. If some of our students are like me, they learn best between midnight and 3 a.m. Some learn better at 10 a.m. to noon. This gives them a chance to tap into what's really working for them. Further, it allows that emotional connection. There's a tremendous amount of literature from around the globe that speaks to how important our traditional modes of instruction are, but how much more important it is for this immersive experience, giving the ability to students to emotionally connect with it. When we emotionally connect with something, we have that surge of endorphins and that surge of excitement and connection that is not found in other forms of content delivery. We can actually create these environments, these scenarios that allow students to see themselves in different scenarios. So we can create an environment where a manufacturing student might be placed on a virtual manufacturing floor, and if he's a person of color, see individuals also of color in that scenario, allowing them to create a new emotional and mental connection with that career field and that profession so that they will have a deeper emotional connection with the topic. Takes it way beyond the textbook in terms of what they're able to learn. The textbook is really great, but this immersive learning, being able to interact with it, being able to really have that ability to dive deeply into the topic is incredibly powerful. It makes learning fun for a lot of these people, for a lot of our students. And for students who are ill-prepared or maybe very visual learners or very tactile learners, this gives those individuals a chance to take what we traditionally deliver in the classroom and add those elements that make it more meaningful for them and successful in the end. I hate the word of gamification, but that's exactly what we're talking about, is not making it a game, but making use of the gamification environment to create a virtual world where these students get to enjoy that experience and that immersion, building their confidence and showing them that they have the capacity to work in these areas. Moreover, with the COVID change, this allows us to connect people together. And with the development in AR and VR technologies, we're able to see that these could be anywhere in the world. A student could be anywhere in the world interacting with colleagues from the same class or other classes, allowing them to remain socially connected with the instructor, with their fellow classmates in a way that we can't today, purely in an online LMS type environment. This enhances that experience and brings back that social connection. So for me, as a futurist and as a career professional, I look at this and can just spend hours talking about the possibilities that not only this has for our profession in teaching and learning and what it can do for student outcomes and success, but also where we can take this as an entirely new industry where it is an important thread across a great deal of future work. whether it's healthcare, manufacturing, service industry, retail, you name it, having or taking the immersive learning technologies to that next level to improve the lives of individuals and to help our students learn to program and deploy these kind of technologies, not only to learn through them, is going to be an exciting future for us. Next slide, please. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague to give you some more examples.
Thank you, Richard. Fascinating. Our next panelist is Edwin Braun from New Braunfels Independent School District. And Edwin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Richard, for setting me up here. Boy, that's I'm going to be showing some examples of exactly what Dr. Bush was talking about, and I'll also hit on some of the topics from the other panelists. I very much appreciate the invite. This invite was a result of a discussion I was having with Lisa over the importance of preparing students for immersive technology in the workforce when companies such as Walmart all the way up to the military are really embracing immersive technology in their trainings. We find it important to train our students and staff to be ready for that challenge when they get there. So next slide, please. Thank you. So yes, I've been in education for 27 years here in Central Texas. I work with students and staff all from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And I am currently an instructional technology specialist working with all levels of people. So we are a one-to-one iPad district, so we don't face some of the challenges I've heard other panelists having to deal with today. I applaud everyone's efforts. We are quite lucky in the position we are in. But the focus of today is mainly on immersive technology and how we're using that here in our district. A brief background. We basically went along with the trend of the technology itself, graduating from Google Cardboards up to Samsung Gear, up to class VR headsets, which we'll see in subsequent slides. And now we're currently purchasing and implementing fully immersive VR at several of our campuses, and we'll see examples on the next slide. Next slide. Yeah. All right. So here, so with our non-immersive technology, and these are great. These are great tools for many teachers, especially elementary and middle school teachers. Basically, the teachers are able to design pre-made slideshows, I guess you could say, with 360 videos and photos, and then they guide all of the users through whatever it is the content of the day is. So it's a passive experience for the users. It leads to great discussions, increased vocabulary as far as descriptive vocabulary for English language learners, for example. You can go to the next slide. More examples you can see with the older kiddos. We have from reading intervention students all the way up to our advanced placement students that are able to see inside the cell of Cervantes where Don Quixote de la Mancha was written. So that type of interaction with the content is something that's still relatively new to the students, and definitely leads to better internalization of the material. Moving on to the next slide gets us more into what my current focus is, which is really pushing to get, as Dr. Bush was pointing out, the fully interactive virtual reality and augmented reality experiences into our students and our staff's hands to really just present a whole new level of internalization and learning of the material. Next slide, please. So we now have 8 fully functioning remote VR units, the Oculus Rift, that can be rolled from classroom to classroom. They're generally housed in our library as a central location, but teachers can take them into their classrooms. And we've done a variety of activities with these, anything from the reading intervention students, as you see on the left, doing a virtual reality recreation of a dystopian story to compare it with what they studied in class, or the kids on the right, the English language learners that are able to get inside of Anne Frank's, a complete recreation of Anne Frank's house, along with the narrative from her diary to truly get a sense of what she had to endure during those very difficult years. Okay, next slide. As I believe Matt had mentioned, and definitely Dr. Bush, the importance of integrating these type of things into our career technology pathways. It's just, I can't stress enough the repeatability and the actual kinetic learning that can take place with something like a complete engine rebuild, or our gateway. We have some severely special needs students that are able to just do the basic tasks that teacher is trying to teach them to be able to be employable when they leave our institutions. Those type of repeatable tasks in a safe environment, it's hard. It's definitely doable with traditional methods, but virtual reality is just bringing us to a completely different level with this stuff. Okay, next slide. We also use this with our more advanced students. On the left, you see our gifted and talented program students working through an escape room challenge as a group, kind of competing with each other on who can make it through. So the users outside the headsets are obviously seeing what she's seeing and guiding her, hopefully, to success. On the right, you see an advanced placement Spanish class going through the Pixar Coco. If you have seen the movie, they have a completely immersive virtual reality experience of the entire plaza that you saw in the movie. And so the students outside the headsets have a task. They're using an app called Goose Chase to guide the person in the environment to find certain things and create certain tasks. All in the target language. So really reinforcing the Spanish, and you can see the engagement in their faces there. Next slide, please. So yeah, this would be my last slide. So again, we use this with all of anywhere from kindergartners with some very basic slideshow type situations, all the way up to our, if you could play that video, I think. Yeah, it's might have to play. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's okay if it doesn't play. But you can see staff and students are very engaged in what they're doing. Our nurses have gone through CPR trainings. Our students have gone through different. We recently did an arson recreation demo from a company out of England for the crime scene investigation, all those type of things that are now safe to do and to repeat over and over again the same scenario. It's just something we have not been able to do before. So last slide, please. So in closing, there's just so much to say and so little time to say it. As previous panelists have mentioned, the importance of being able to connect and collaborate outside of, in my opinion, outside of the normal situation, Zoom now being the normal. There are so many platforms that currently exist and are getting more and more accessible to where students and staff can now be anywhere in the world participating in a much more engaged and with a true sense of presence in either virtual or augmented reality that one just does not get from a Zoom or a Google Meet. The repeatability, the kinetic learning, the savings that can be had as far as monetary savings, it's just it's been a great thing for us, and I'm very excited to continue in this pathway. So my time is up, and thank you for the invite. Let y'all move on.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you very much. Next, we have Seth Brosio from the Highway Construction and Career Training Program, and following Seth will be Nick Gorens from the CDL training program. We hear both of those are housed at Richland Community College. So Seth, it's yours. Seth. Did we lose you? All right, Nick.
Okay. One thing I'd like to say with Richland Community College, one thing I see them doing is investing in the online learning. They added staff for technical position that'll help students. I can say that the normal tech people we have are open to helping any student using their personal computers to get them set up for the online learning. The college has donated, or not donated, loaned out quite a few computers to the students and hotspots when available. I think funding needs to be greater so we can get more of that, since we're all going to probably be going to a lot of online learning. Now, my program, we have students as young as 18 and as old as in their 70s. So I've seen both spectrums of where sometimes they have trouble. On the younger side, it's generally people who don't have the economic ability to afford what we need them for online. And as the older students, you know, sometimes our technological skills aren't up to par. We use Canvas for our online training. I've been pretty happy with that. Once the students learn the technical side of it, the Canvas delivers the online training, in my opinion, pretty good. We haven't had a lot of issues with comprehension. It seems to be doing well, but sometimes the issues is getting them up to speed with running on it. One thing I found with ours is that the online learning in my program is kind of self-paced. Maybe we need to work with students to learn how to manage their time a little better and use the repeatability of the courses online. I'm sorry. But I see this online, I was very hesitant to get on with it. I like the classroom feeling, you know, being able to see the students, but I am really starting to like the online training because, like you said, they can go back, relook at things. They have access to it 24/7. I really see it as a good tool, not to get into the budgetary part of it, but it definitely will probably save some money over the long run, which is, you know, our program's pretty expensive to run, so budgetary issues are a big part of it. But I'm very happy to hear from the rest of the panel. Everything they're doing is what I believe we need. And I'm not as educated as a lot of you guys, but what you are doing is great. And a lot of the public that I'm dealing with need the libraries, and the libraries are doing an awesome job. I know the Decatur Public Library is a huge help to our institution here. I know Richard and Matt spoke about a lot of things that I had seen with students. I know a lot of students were having trouble when everybody first started going online, and so I'm very glad I was part of this, because I'm going to look into the VR online learning. I see where that could help our program. But It's new to me. I'm learning as fast as our students are. And I think it's there's nothing good about having a pandemic, but for my program, I think it's bringing us more into the 21st century where we can do more with it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nick. And I'd kind of like to add, Nick and I, we share space here. We've talked about some things. And Nick, if you have just a moment, what do you see for the future? You know, we know autonomous driving, I mean, as far as your industry, transportation logistics.
Oh, absolutely. Between transportation logistics, the mechanical side, it is going to become very technical. You can have remote driving. You'll have your autonomous vehicle. There will be a very large upstep in train as a driver and as a mechanic. So we're going to have to definitely be ahead of what's going on. One thing we could even do that would match, say, the remote driving is get a simulator, which simulators are very expensive, but that would match what's going to be coming in that direction. There's so much.
Lisa, this is Jennifer.
Yeah.
I may need to move on since
Sure.
since we've got a problem with Nick's audio. And did we figure out if Seth's audio is working? And if not, I'd like to move us to Moises.
Yeah, let's go on to Moises. And so rounding it out, and we'll see if we can maybe get them back. I don't know. Moises Bernal Puente. And again, I apologize. With a name like Manalisi, you know, right? So from Central States SER and the Illinois Digital Learning Lab. And Moises, if you'd like to begin, please.
No problem. Can you go back to this previous slide, please? Oh, thank you. So hello, my name is Moises Bernal, and I am a program facilitator at Central States SER, Little Village Center. We serve the mainly Black and Latinx populations of the west and southwest sides of Chicago. I want to speak to you today about my experiences in the Illinois Digital Learning Lab and how it scales and systematically boosts digital literacy and skill foundations for more people in equitable ways. The lab is an effort led by the Chicago Citywide Literacy Council that creates a community of adult educators and teaching programs across the state. Next slide, please. The lab's goal is to experiment with digital tools and technology to serve the needs of our students. Digital tools offer the promise to improve the effectiveness and reach of adult education. The lab has three core elements. Number one, support for adult educators and their programs on how to effectively incorporate learning technology into the classroom with subject matter experts and curated resources. Two, a facilitated learning community for educators and administrators to support, advise, and learn from each other and from the resources they find valuable. Three, capturing insights into the most effective digital tools, delivery models, support strategies, which can then be shared across the state of Illinois. Next slide, please. Let me describe to you how these core elements affected our efforts at Central States SER. Here, I teach job readiness skills, including soft skills for job seekers. On top of that, I teach digital literacy skills to our customers. Before we applied for the IDLL, as part of our program, our customers created a career portfolio. It consisted of their resumes, a references document, a sample cover letter, and a sample thank you letter. We recommended that this portfolio be stored in their Google Drive for portability. Our customers also use the Northstar Digital Literacy Assessments, where many earn certificates. So As you can tell, we were already teaching plenty of digital literacy because these activities were all carried out in our multiple computer labs. With the what the IDLL did in conjunction with another group that we work with called LULAC and their Grow with Google initiative was to systematize and expand our efforts. First, the IDLL provided us with 16 Chromebooks, which we in turn provided to our customers to continue their training. Once we had the Chromebooks, we taught ourselves and clients how to use them. Coupled with our ongoing partnership with Grow with Google, we held community events to present and teach digital skills for everyday use and to help search for employment. We did this pre-pandemic and post-shutdown. Pre-pandemic, we were able to teach our customers how to use and or become more comfortable with these machines. Post-pandemic, we used the machines to teach our customers digital literacy skills and other programs remotely. Next slide, please. We were paired with Jeff Gumas from Crowded Learning as our subject matter expert. We met with him at the Chicago Citywide Literacy Council's building in the West Loop. There we were trained how to use Google Forms, Quizlet, quizzes, Google Classroom, Wakelet, Zoom, Google Applied Digital Skills websites and training, and many other useful and relevant tools. Jeff Gumas and Michael Matos also met with us remotely every month where we systematized our efforts by making goals, hypotheses, and metrics. We had 3 sprints, which were basically implementation periods, which helped us evaluate our efforts periodically. As a practitioner, these were also research periods. They were driven by a hypothesis, an if-then statement prediction of what will occur during the implementation of a promising new teaching or learning strategy or approach, a new digital tool, new change program design, or other change in teaching that the practitioner believed will result in certain positive outcomes. It is an opportunity to test out what a practitioner thinks will improve practice and learning outcomes. That also how it would affect students in new and other positive ways. We also met in bigger groupings with the other subject matters experts and their members of their groups. The most memorable one was at Chicago Google headquarters, also in the West Loop. There, the exemplary members of the IDLL were able to present their work so that we could learn from their efforts. Our closing event was remote. By then, I had become a more competent practitioner of some of the digital resources that we had learned. I was able to present some of my efforts at that event. That was a first for me. Last slide, please. Our clients have benefited from these developments greatly. We are more systematic in the way we teach digital literacy. We have many more relevant teaching resources at our disposal, which we handle competently. And we are more comfortable in presenting the importance of these skills in today's economy. Also, we have been able to complete trainings remotely thanks to the training and resources the IDLL provided us. Many of our clients have gone on to receive additional computer-related training via WIOA grants. Others have gotten jobs where their digital skills have served them well. And another has started a 10-week Python coding bootcamp, which places its students from underrepresented communities in employment in the technology field. We are enthusiastic adherents to this method of training because we see its results. Imagine scaling up these efforts to incorporate many more educators. Imagine an army of digital literacy educators unleashed to their community colleges, community centers, adult learning centers, and other adult education settings. There we can build these skills where they are needed most, in underserved communities which are demanding equity after centuries of not receiving it. I thank you.
Thank you, Moises. Okay, I know we're really running close on time here. We're going to see, Seth, are you back in? Can we hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay,
Seth.
my name's Seth Brozio. I'm at Richland Community College. I run the heavy highway program. Been doing that for about 5 years. My background is construction. Been doing that for over 10 years, and I have a degree in occupational health and safety. So I'll be honest, I don't have a whole lot. I'll tell you guys what I do with my program. So my program is for minorities, women and disadvantaged individuals that want to get into the highway trade. So we're real hands-on. We try to move to Canvas and stuff this year for math and job skills. I got computers for those who didn't have computers. But to be honest, it was a disaster for us. Students didn't learn very well. Can't read tape measures still. So I had a lot of issues with it. So I'm moving away from it. There's just some things that we just can't have digitally all the time. From my experience, they just missed out too much on class and being in front of somebody. So I know everybody else is kind of talking about how good everything was. I didn't really have good luck with it, I'll be honest. So basically that's about all I have.
Well, Seth, I'll put to you the same question as Nick, as far as the future of, your, the skills, the future skills that they're going to need in the 10 years. I mean, those machines that you are training your students on are going to change. What do you foresee for them?
I haven't really looked that far in advance, 10, 15 years. I don't know what's out there that they're trying to do. I know there's certain stuff they're going to try to, I know with like combines and stuff, they're running them GPS signals and stuff like that. They do that with backhoes and skid steers now, but I still think we're going to need people on the ground to do things for certain situations like construction, and I don't know how we're going to get around that. I mean, that's how I see it. And when I talk to the guys in the unions, they haven't really mentioned anything about it changing a whole heck of a lot. So.
Okay. All right. Well, again, Nick and Seth, again, are part of our training program. And as I have said, they're the boots on the ground. They're working with the current, and I think that's one thing that we want to keep in mind is the group that, we're hearing from are practitioners in the fields of education, and, that's a different set. These Seth and Nick are working with they're, well, like I say, boots on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could add, like, some of the stuff I noticed is they don't get the feel for, like, PPE, for example. Like, my students have to wear hard hats, have to wear gloves. You don't get to feel that in a virtual setting. You don't understand the the difference in the noise and how a machine runs. You don't get to hear all that. If the machine's running a little off, you can kind of tell by just hearing it. I mean, there's just so many little things, and me being in the field, you don't get the temperature extremes. Like, I've worked in 120 degrees environments in boilers, and I've worked in negative 30 degree environments. You don't get that. So you can train people and get them ready for all that stuff, but until they actually do it, they don't really understand what they're getting themselves into. That's what I've been noticing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. And again, there's a place for it, and there's a niche. It'll come, but we're just not there yet. All right, Jennifer, if we would like to start on the wrap up.
So thank you to all of the presenters. We're running short on Q&A time, but I'm not seeing questions in the chat. Lisa, did you want to throw out one final question for panelists?
Sure, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I actually have several questions. So trying to nail it down to one question would be difficult. But yeah, I'll throw out one here just as we're winding up. For any of the panelists, what are your predictions about how important digital skills will be in Illinois in these coming years?
This is Richard. I think it's unmistakable that digital technologies and digital skills are going to be critical. You can't look at a job today without those playing a part. And even the more traditional jobs in manufacturing and even some of the construction areas and so forth, you're starting to see technology infiltrate those areas more and more. What's happening is we're being forced into a position where we've got to educate our labor force so that they can operate in a more enhanced environment, so that they can control more. Industry 4.0, autonomous vehicles, those things are right on our doorstep, and there's going to be a ton of jobs for those students willing to get into those fields to maintain those systems and to make those systems more effective and productive in the years to come. So I see them actually generating a greater demand for workforce than ever before.
Hey, Lisa.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Robert.
Yeah.
I see, you know, sort of what Dr. Bush just said. There's a real need for the training, for the introduction to the digital world. I worked in addition to the library, I've worked in the manufacturing field. I worked in the construction field. You know, and basically, you know, even those areas, you know, a lot of that's just digital now. When you're doing the test on those machines, it's digital. When you're having that basic knowledge of how things work, how to navigate through certain types of software, how to actually, you know, what kind of connects to what. That's very important. And like I said, here at the library, we have a lot of this, you know, the hardware, what have you, software for introduction. But we find that, you know, people who come in even for classes, they want the introduction. Some of them, they want to know, you know, hey, I'm not familiar with the skills. My job just changed, you know, and I'm thinking I'm going to need this even to fill out the application anymore. A lot of it's just online. It's just online. So we have people coming in needing help with that. So, you know, and if you look at the state initiatives, you can see them putting money and resources in that direction for different groups, so they can actually help to bridge that divide even more, and to make Illinois, you know, just that the workforce, get them prepared for what's coming. So I think it's going to be very important going forward.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, so this is Jennifer Phillips again. I just, Robert and Dr. Bush, that was a great way to kind of wrap up the webinar. And I think all of you have heard the panelists really going all the way from basic digital skills to sort of like the future of training and how technology will have an impact there. We're going to wrap up right now and just say thank you very much for attending today's webinar. Thank you to our amazing set of panelists. And as I stated earlier, tomorrow attendees will receive a follow-up email that will include a survey asking you about today's webinar. We'd really appreciate your feedback and any suggestions you have to help improve upcoming webinars. And because this was a two-part series on digital divide, if you have thoughts or suggestions about ways to continue this strand of this topic, we'd love to hear that too. So again, thank you so much. Stay safe and well, and we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you.